Sorry, yeah. Welcome to Florida Gators Live 18. Oh man, what a hectic day it has been for the Gators, or hectic week, I should say. Basketball team ups, but also downs, getting that 19-point win against number 12 Texas A&M, but also suffering that 6-point loss to the Georgia Bulldogs. Then the baseball team almost completes a sweep, but we do drop game 3 in a 6-point loss or 6-run loss to Miami. But it's also starting to get into football season, and the catalyst for football is recruiting. So I think we're going to start off by talking about the potential of this 2026 recruiting class. Now, when we're talking about the potential for this recruiting class, we're not necessarily talking about what individual players we will get. It is still only March 2nd here. So we can be in it for a player today, and 2 weeks from now, not even be in their top 3. We could have somebody committed now, and they're long gone by the time signing day comes. I'm going to let you start off here for talking about 2026 recruiting class and what you think we can do.
Yeah, well, I think you teed it up pretty well because that's just kind of the world we live in now. I mean, that's always been the recruiting world.
Yeah.
Like it's always been volatile. Guys will be interested in a school that'll change. They'll commit, decommit. But I think even more so now when you see teams making these late pushes. Maybe some more money comes in that they can make a run for a guy they weren't previously going after that hard. So it's really hard to predict things on a specific level. But I mean, to me, I think I would look to the way that they finished off the last recruiting class. And I would say that is at the very least, because I think, obviously the final rankings left a little bit to be desired, got some good players, not where the class would like, we'd like it to be in an ideal world, but pretty solid considering where it was, midway through the season. But I think that showed at least proof of concept that, a lot of it is just winning. Like,
It is. Yeah.
winning and showing, reasons to be optimistic about the future, for example, DJ Lagway. I think that made a big impact. So to me, I guess like the starting point here for me is how good is the football team going to be this year?
Mm-hmm.
Because things can change. Recruiting is not wrapped up heading into the season. As we saw, things can change really quickly, even getting pretty close to early signing day. So to me, it's like, is this team in college football playoff contention in November? I think that is going to be as important a factor as, NIL or how hard Billy's pushing for these kids. Like there's other factors, but kids want to come win ultimately.
Yeah, I think you hit it right there with the fact that we started winning games. We started showing promise in Billy's development. That's when the recruiting class went from 52nd, 54th to 8th, which I think really is like what we see. And that can be the potential of this recruiting team or recruiting class for 2026. I think you can also look back at the 2024 class before the 2023 season, where we got as high as like number 2 in the nation before the season started. And we saw it keep kind of unraveling throughout the season to where it didn't even finish top 10. But I mean, then you come into 2024 with the 2025 class, Billy's able to win games and get the momentum, really flip things from that previous cycle to bring it to that number 8 ranking. I think another thing we can look out for is kids that maybe committed before the season or early on in the season that weren't necessarily all about money, but they're like development, relationships. We'll now have a better chance at landing those kids, as well as we're going to be, if we have a season, like you're saying, being in playoff contention, I think there's a good chance we're going to have more money come in. We saw a couple months ago where we raised $2 million for the Florida Gators football team. I mean, that's after 8 wins. Imagine we have 10. Imagine we have a playoff gate team. Imagine we win a playoff game. I'm thinking about the possibility of having our best class. I mean, we had a best class this year since 2014, which was only ranked 8th. I could easily see us getting into that top 5 margin if we're able to replicate and continue doing well what we did at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, it seems to me, and this is hard to say because we are all kind of outsiders looking in on this, but it seems to me that Florida's at least become semi-competitive from an NIL perspective with programs it measures itself up against. I'm not saying it's at Texas level, but I think Florida can make competitive offers to guys with other SEC schools. So what that tells me is that, you have momentum both on, off and on the field, with the way last season ending on a 4-game winning streak. You've got DJ Lagway, and you closed out with a pretty solid recruiting class, all things considered. So I think there's pretty good reason to think they could build off that and, land multiple 5-stars, get into that top 5 kind of range if they're winning. But there's just so much potential variance here, because we could see that. We could see Florida go, 10-2, and that happens. We could see a repeat of what happened at the end of, the Dan Mullen tenure, where kids saw the writing on the wall and started leaving the class even before Dan Mullen got fired. And, that's could possibly be how things end for Billy too this year, like just being realistic. So, like, I think Billy really controls his own destiny here in terms of both his job, but also, Florida's recruiting outlook, because I don't think there's any like structural reason to believe that a successful Florida football program will not be competing at a top 10, maybe fringe top 5 level.
I mean, you brought it up about the NIL, how we should be able to compete with them at the highest level. I mean, look at us landing Dallas Wilson and Hilton Stubbs. I mean, Dallas Wilson, you go flip from Oregon, who is like reported to spend the most money with Phil Knight trying to win championships at Oregon, and you flip a 5-star wide receiver from them. Then Hilton Stubbs at Miami. We know Miami's willing to put in money to get these high 4-star level players. So I see no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that, but especially if we can get more money in and hopefully get that top 5 class. You also brought up kids leaving. Like, if we do have a hot start like we did in 2023 with that class, but we do start losing games. That's why I have in my notes, we need to have a hot start to the season. If we start off 2-2 with like losing to both LSU and Miami, I think things are going to be pretty tough for Napier to fix, beyond the fact that like getting 8 wins, just repeating what he did, because he doesn't just need to get those 8 wins again. We need to be 9, 10, 11 win team. You're not going to have those recruits being like, oh, well, Georgia, they're still producing elite talent and winning and making the playoff. But it's like, oh, Florida, Billy's a nice guy, I should go there. This is not going to happen. That's just not how recruiting works. They want to go make the most money, and they want to go to the NFL. That's just how it works a majority of the time.
And I think there's another factor too that they want, because, obviously the LSU and Ole Miss wins helped a lot, but that's actually not what kickstarted the recruiting turnaround. What kickstarted the recruiting turnaround was the vote of confidence in Billy Napier, because ultimately these kids want stability. I mean, that wasn't like what made it be as good as it was, but it's what turned the tide from like, wow, this is going to be an awful class to like, okay, Florida at least has like a bit of momentum here. And it's because these guys want stability. They don't want to commit to a coaching staff that's not going to be there in a few months. So if you come out of the gate hot, you beat Miami, maybe you beat LSU, all of a sudden it's looking like Billy Napier's probably not getting fired. And that gives him a lot more leeway to go out and be like, no kid's going to believe you pitching your vision to them if they don't believe you're going to be the head coach next year.
Yeah, I absolutely see that. I think what I'm trying to talk about is us having an elite level class, not just a good class.
Sure.
Like, I'm hoping that with Billy in the future, what he's kind of sold to us, and him knowing that this is a talent acquisition business, is getting to this top 5 level classes and not just top 10 level classes. So that's kind of where I go with winning and not just security. Not just winning 8 games, but winning 10 games.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because NIL will only make up for so much. Like, because at the end of the day, NIL is just the equalizing factor. Everyone's paying these kids. So you don't get an advantage by just having money. They're not going to pick you when they could go make the same amount of money for a team that's actually competing. So yeah, that I think is I mean, we've seen examples of teams that can recruit at that level. I mean, Auburn's been kind of recruiting at that level without winning at that level, but I don't think that's an easy thing to. Yeah, Texas A&M has been doing that. I mean, they have more money than God, but yeah, I mean, I think that is, for most programs at least, the success is a prerequisite to recruiting at that level these days, especially.
Absolutely. Moving on from football, I think we need to give a quick shout out to the baseball team. They're able to pick up a nice series win over Miami. Does leave a little bit of a sour taste because they did get the last laugh per se I mean, we got the series win, and that's really kind of all what matters. Like, if you're able to win every series from here on out, we'll be a top 8 team, maybe higher. Our schedule
Mhm.
is not as tough, so probably be
Yeah.
on the lower side of that rather than the higher side. But I mean, they're doing everything they need to do. I'm not going to worry too much about a game 3 loss. I mean, I probably would have liked to see the bats be a little bit better this past weekend. I mean, scoring 6 runs against some good Miami pitchers isn't that bad, but
Mhm.
I feel like I had higher expectations for this lineup.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. I would just say that the pitching, this is a big jump in pitching from what they've been facing
Hmm.
so far this season. Like, I think, yeah, I'm not too concerned about the game 3 loss. I mean, what's frustrating about the game 3 loss is that if you win that game, like, you're probably a top 2 or 3 team in the country tomorrow.
Yep.
That's probably not going to happen now, even though that was still the first loss of the season, which, I mean, Texas A&M, I mean, they're not going to be number 1 anymore, but they have
No.
they're like 6-3 or something like that.
Hmm.
They've had some issues, star player getting hurt. Speaking of injuries, that was a concern on Saturday. Pierce
Yep.
Coppola, starter, left the game. Not really sure. I think Nick Delatorre said it was a blister, but Sully didn't say that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there. That's going to be something to monitor. Cade Curlin also dislocated his shoulder, seems to be okay. I don't know how long, if at all, he's going to have to miss beyond, this weekend. So, but the thing that's really just like, I think is important to note is like, and I'm not saying that Sully wasn't trying to win today, because obviously he was, but the way that Florida manages pitchers this weekend, they were going all in to win the series. I mean, they played everybody in those first
Yep.
2 games, and it left
I
them in a rough spot today when Clemente wasn't great, and then you just did not have the relievers behind him.
I think it doesn't help that you had to pull Coppola probably earlier than you wanted,
Yeah,
because really, we were up 4-0 today. I messaged you and like, okay, we can talk
yeah,
baseball. It looks like we're gonna get the sweep win over Miami, and then things just fell apart. But like, I think that could also be a part of Coppola having to come out early, and you're wasting a pitcher, because that
yeah.
could be the difference in you being up 4-2 or staying up 4-2 instead of losing 7-13. So. And from what I've heard, it's not that big of an injury for Pierce. And we kind of just pulled him out of precaution in that game
Yeah. I mean,
yesterday.
yeah, it wasn't like a blowout or something like that. He was still pitching. He just was struggling to find the zone. And I think
Hmm.
his velo was down a little bit. The thing that's a little concerning to me now is that you had to have Billy Barlow play so much today that I'm not sure he can start against UCF on Tuesday night, which is,
Mm.
as far as midweek games go, that's a fairly tough one. So that's not great. But I think this is still a really good team. They don't really have like a star player. There's not like a Jack Caglione or a
No,
Wyatt Langford on this team, but there's a lot of really good players,
I mean
kind of throughout
Bozer is
the
looking
entire
really
lineup.
good.
Yeah, Bozer's been great. I think Brennan Lawson, the true
Yep,
freshman's played really well. Hayden Yost has played really well. There's a lot of guys that are stepping up. I think this is a really good baseball team. I mean, this is just what Sully does early in seasons. He figures out which guys he can rely on and which guys he can't out of the bullpen, and sometimes you get burned, and that's just kind of part of these early non-conference games. But the series wins the most important thing, and it's big, and big that they got that.
absolutely. We did see Brady Donay get a home run today as well, which is good
Mhm.
after he's been struggling a little bit the past few games since he went on that big home run streak. Doesn't look like he's going to be as good as we hoped he would be, but if he's starting to get things back and maybe be that all-star level player that we really do need if we want to be like
Mhm.
a championship team instead of another Omaha team.
Yeah, if he has the potential. He kind of just needs the consistency, but he's the guy that I think if anyone's going to do it, it's him.
Absolutely. We just talked about the recruiting class that we're bringing in. So I think it's time to talk about what players from that recruiting class are going to be those impact players, not just in the season, but in spring. Last year, we saw Jaden Ball have a breakout in that spring game. And then you fast forward to now, and we're talking about Jaden Ball being maybe the best freshman running back in the SEC and a top 5 running back in the SEC coming into this season. So I think we need to, and DJ Lagway had a pretty good spring game as well. Now, a lot of people were going to have biases no matter what towards Lagway, and him playing well in a spring game also had more people give that bias towards him. So I'm going to ask you one player, maybe two, however you feel, on offense that you think is someone that could break out in this spring.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it feels like such a cop out, but it's hard not to say the receivers because
Yeah.
they're gonna get the opportunities too. You're gonna
Yeah.
see them in the spring game. Obviously Vernell Brown and Dallas Wilson, the aforementioned 5-star that Florida flipped from Oregon. Like,
Mhm.
I think that there's potential for a young guy to step up at receiver. Not a lot of proven talent there. A lot of guys that I think we feel pretty good about, but not a lot of production. So we've said it a lot. There's an opportunity here. I think how good the receiving core is really does depend on if any of these true freshmen can play a significant factor and step up. It'll be interesting to see. Like, I'm curious because I kind of highly doubt that both of them step into major roles this year. And I'm kind of curious which of the two is the one that gets a little bit more play.
Yeah, I've shared a lot of my love for the play of Nashawn Montgomery. I mean, I think 2 weeks ago we were talking about the receivers, and I predicted Nashawn to be the best of the freshman receivers that come in. However, we are in spring, so I do think he's going to develop more over the summer. And I think the guys that are ready more right now is probably Vernell Brown, maybe Dallas Wilson, but that's because Dallas Wilson is such a physical guy that his blocking is an impact right now. So for today and when spring practice starts on March 6th, which is Thursday, I believe, I'm going to say it's Vernell Brown because I do really like his route running and his speed, athleticism. I think he has a lot of things that can translate right away compared to Nashawn, which I think is going to work a lot over the summer, and Dallas Wilson, which I think is going to. I don't know how to feel about Dallas Wilson. It's very interesting because physically he's built for today. I just think his route running is probably going to take a while to develop or a little bit longer. It's more of a thing is he just that physical right now that it doesn't matter that he lacks some of the more trainable aspects of the game.
Yeah, we see a lot of guys like this too. Like really at a lot of positions, like, so talented and some really good skills, but some areas that really need to be developed. And it's like, can you contribute in spite of those things? It might be tough, especially, I think the fact that he can block, hopefully, is helpful in a Billy Napier offense, obviously, considering that's something you're going to be tasked to do quite a bit. But I do think you make a good point that like Vernell Brown is a little bit more developed in the skill set you really want in a receiver that's seeing significant snaps rather than maybe just, hey, let's get Dallas Wilson the ball just to see what happens, versus like Vernell Brown's probably more likely the guy that could like be a really like prominent member of the rotation, at least early on.
Absolutely. We did just see the announcement of Troy Wilson moving to the slot where Trimmer Adike was playing last season. And I mean, quick shout out, Trimmer Adike and Elijah Badger, the receivers specifically, had a really good combine. So
yeah,
just want to give them a quick
honestly,
shout
like
out.
DK, like I did not quite know DK. I mean, like obviously, like I watched him play, but like I just didn't quite know he was that level of an athlete. Like honestly, that was pretty surprising to see.
Absolutely. I would ask if there's really anyone else in the offense outside the receivers that you could see having that breakout spring. I mean, we do see two teams start on spring. So is there anyone else on those freshmen on offense you could see breaking out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because a lot of the other ones that are like on campus already are guys like Jahari Medlock. I don't think you're gonna really see him a ton this year. I'd say, I mean, I'd have to say probably Waltez Clark, just because of the way Florida rotates its running backs and the way we've seen freshmen be able to contribute at running back in the past. Like just based on history and usage, frankly, based on history and usage, I'd be maybe more willing to bet he like plays a bigger role on the field this season than maybe even the receivers do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, more just saying I could see him being in the rotation and them not, you know what I mean?
Well, I'll say I've noticed a lot in the past couple spring games. We have a lot of offensive linemen out for these games. So I'll just go with Tavares Dice because I think he's flexible to play tackle or guard. So if you do have those injuries and the starters out, I mean, you don't really look at the offensive lineman a lot, and specifically just one guy in a spring game. But I mean, you talk about it, it's tough to figure out anyone else because you have Tramel Jones, but he's going to be third or in the spring game at least third string, maybe fourth string
Yeah.
QB.
Well, I was
And
gonna say Tramel Jones, like
yeah,
I'm interested in the sense that can he claim that number 2 spot? Like, can he beat out
ooh,
Harrison Bailey
that's
by the
an
start of the
interesting
season?
take right there.
That's kind of where and I'm not saying you will. Like, that's just what
Yeah, I got you.
that's with him. That's what I'm curious to see. Like, can you be the guy that if God forbid something happens to Lagway again and he has to miss a couple games, can you be the guy that they turn to as a true freshman? I mean, I'm not expecting that. I'm not putting that on
No,
him, but Harrison Bailey, I don't think he's fine as a backup, but I also don't think his job is like untakeable.
yeah, there was the recent footage of Tramel Jones throwing with Nashawn Montgomery, and it looks like he throws a pretty decent ball.
Mm-hmm.
All right, switching to the defensive side, who are the one or two defensive freshmen that you think can have a breakout here? Like, more interesting than the offense, I think.
Yeah, a lot of interesting names you could go with here. I think the one there's probably two I could say here interchangeably, but I think the main one I'll focus on is Hilton Stubbs. But the
Okay.
safeties overall between Hilton Stubbs and Lagonza Hayward, we've talked about it a lot. Safety is a pretty open-ended position for the Gators. Like, if we had to bet on it, we'd probably say it's Bryce Thornton and Jordan Castell starting at safety next year. But like,
We'll get to that later on the show.
yeah. Yeah, sorry for spoiling that. But I think that's probably what it looks like right now, but I don't know if either of those spots are like, set in stone. I think if there's a spot where a true freshman, like any spot on the field where a true freshman I think could make the biggest possible impact of any offense or defense, I would probably go with safety.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that defensive back unit, and I'm gonna go with Ben Hanks Jr.
That's a good pick.
I see two guys on the two cornerbacks that I'm like, okay, these guys are probably gonna be the starters. But then behind them, I see there's an open spot, and we saw the injuries we had at corner last year, so I could see Ben Hanks being able to slot in right there. Think he's really day one ready. We've seen on 3 give him the 5-star status, jumping up into that near top 50 on the composite. So I think he's the one guy I'll go with. And of the safeties, I've heard a lot of good things about Lagonza Hayward being pretty physical and more day one SEC ready. And then the last one I'll shout out, Jaden Woods. A lot of footage of him. He's been nonstop training. Someone that I also said probably has the highest potential of anyone of these freshmen. So I think Jaden Woods could, if he is already ready, could have a pretty big impact in the spring, especially with the lack of depth there and injuries happen in spring. So, sorry. But yeah, Jaden Woods is just going to have more opportunity because of the lack of depth at his position and in the spring game. Although it is harder for an edge to break out because it's a little less physical in the game. Yeah. So, like those sacks that you would normally have, it's like it's not going to happen because you're not going to let him tackle the QB, obviously. But I still think you'll see. When you see it, you'll see it.
And it's also like a lot of times you're not working with a straight up like first team defensive line against a first team offensive line. You've kind of got mix and matching. It's hard to know what's happening there. But I think those are good picks. And I think kind of the through line with all of our picks here is these are all positions where Florida's either, starting guys or just at least the depth is kind of up in the air. These are all positions where there's opportunities for guys to get on the field early if they step up. Another guy I'd talk about is Ty Jackson, not because, I don't think there's really an opportunity to see a ton of playing time as a freshman here at linebacker, just with all the talent Florida has there. But a guy that Billy Napier has been really high on. We've talked about it a lot, what he said about his junior film or senior film, whatever. Junior film. Yeah. Saying it was the best film he's ever seen. Like, to me, like you look at how much Florida still managed to rotate in, Miles Graham and Aaron Childs, even before injuries kind of forced them to play more. And I think it's easy to see Ty Jackson getting that same kind of role if he's ready. And, it seems like he's a guy that Billy was really high on, getting him one of those guys that joined the class pretty late.
Absolutely. I think we're all excited to see these freshmen in the spring and hope they can help elevate this team going into the 2025 season. Man, it's weird talking about football because we talk about recruiting and we're talking about 2026, but we're still 6 months away from the 2025 season even starting. Oh man, it gets a bit confusing sometimes. But we're going to do a sponsorship graphic real quick, guys. Read out this here. Get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the voice of college football. Let's discuss how you can also reach your target market. Check out the experience of one of our current partners posted on the screen. We are here to deliver for you. You can contact us at sponsorships@voiceofcollegefootball.com. I have a link here. I'll send it in the chat for anyone who needs it. Copy link. Oh, wrong button. And oh no, there we go. Oh, and it sent it with the space for some reason. There we go. All right, and we can now move on from that. Let's talk about basketball. I mean, we already talked about it a little bit earlier, the doom and gloom. You had the upsetting loss to Georgia on the road. Not necessarily a bad loss. It's still a quad one game. It's not going to hurt you on the resume. But when we're competing for that number one seed, it's not an uphill battle. It's not a win and in situation now. It might be a win and in situation, but we might need some things to go our way. We don't really know what the committee is thinking. We don't know if they have Tennessee, Alabama above us. We don't know if the win against Bama will put us there. But what we do know is we had an impressive win on Saturday night by 19 points against Texas A&M. I'll let you break it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming off what was just a heartbreaking loss to Georgia, because
absolutely
I had resigned myself to a loss like 5 minutes into the game. I mean, if the other team's shooting 68%, I mean, it was pretty bad pretty early. But I'm saying when the other team's shooting 68% in the first half, like there's nothing you can do about that. Like you're not going to win that game. And so I was like, yeah, whatever. And then they, to come all the way back from down 26 and take the lead in the final minute and lose anyway was so gutting. And it had me a little worried, being this close to the end of the season, like what that was going to do to the psyche of this team. And they responded really well. I mean, came out of the gate hot, took a pretty big lead into half and expanded on it coming out of half. And then, A&M fought back and, they're a good team. I think, they made things really difficult. Florida was struggling to rebound. They ended up ahead in the rebounding count, but it was a battle against a really physical Texas A&M team for most of this game. And they, had their run, got back, cut it to 6. And it kind of had all the makings of a game that, maybe previous Florida teams would have squandered, because you had the big lead, you blew it, and then all of a sudden they're hitting everything. You're, in your own head taking some stupid shots, and they just were able to kind of hold them at bay. Will Richard has just been on a tear these last 2 games, 30 points in the loss to Georgia, 25 last night. Honestly, it felt like he had even more than 25, because just every time Florida needed a shot in the arm, there was Will Richard to hit a 3. I mean, I think Todd even said it after the game. Like when they cut it to 6, Will Richard hit the 3 that put it back to 9 and sort of spurred the run that allowed Florida to pull away for good. I believe that was the timeline on that. So, just all in all, and by the way, to win that game when, Walt doesn't have his best game shooting, not the most productive, finished with 18 points. So
2 of 8 from 3.
Yeah. 2 over 3. Aberdeen didn't score. Condon was still not very good offensively. He's still kind of working his way back. Only 6 from Hauk. Chinyelu fouled out. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong.
You're looking at the Georgia game. I was
say. Sorry about that. Oops.
I'm like, Condon had a.
Clayton had. Yeah. I was like, wait, this doesn't sound right. No. Still only 11 points from Condon. Not his most incredible offensive game, but yeah, Walt wasn't great. Chinyelu didn't score a point in 7 minutes played.
I think the thing with Chinyelu is more of the fact that Micah Hanglaughton was playing so good defensively in that first half that you kind of needed to put him on there when you could over Chinyelu. I think the physicality of A&M was a bit different for Chinyelu, and was kind of getting to him. So I think it made sense to play more Micah and Condon instead of him.
And I'm glad you brought up Micah, because it really seems like Micah's settling in nicely.
Yeah.
we kind of talked about it, was a little bit awkward. His first game back sort of looked, a little bit, maybe a little bit unconditioned, was just kind of still trying to get caught up to the speed. I mean, he's still not doing a ton offensively, but 8 rebounds in this game. And I mean, his size, Florida has really just been missing that size and wingspan. It makes such a difference when you see the balls he's going up to get. Just even, as good of a rebounding team as this is, their rebounds that Florida probably wouldn't have gotten without Micah.
Well, he's not doing much scoring offensively. I mean, he got 4 offensive rebounds, which I know 2 of them were on the same drive where he got 2.
Yeah.
And then I think another one, he had a pass back 3 to Will Richard, or a drive to end up being linked to a 3 for Will Richard. So that's like another 5, maybe even more points. I don't know where the other offensive rebound came. So, I mean, that's 2 points for him. But, I mean, if he's taking a couple shots, I mean, that's possibly 6, which still is not the greatest offensive game. But that's about what he was doing last season when he was fully healthy. But I think the big difference for Micah now is I think he's better defensively this year than he was last year. And he's only in his, 3rd, 4th game? Yeah. 4th game back, right?
I think so. That sounds right.
And so, in theory, he should just keep improving as we go on, get into March, when you need to be playing your best basketball if you want to win a championship. And you brought it up with Will Richard, his last 2 games, 30 and 25 points. Something I noticed a lot, when Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin have like their worst games, those are like always Will Richard's best games.
Yeah.
I mean, look at North Carolina earlier in the season where Will Richard, I think, had 25 or like 24, 25 points again, where Walt and Elijah Martin were having slower games. I think they stepped up at the end, but still. And then you go back to South Carolina, the first meeting, where, again, Walt is missing, Elijah Martin's missing. Will Richard steps up, hits the game-winning layup, as well as having a team leading in points. And then the past 2 games, Walter Clayton and, I mean, Elijah Martin didn't play. Elijah Martin actually played really well against Texas A&M. But Walter Clayton, offensively, shooting-wise specifically, he was definitely having a down game. Yeah. And, I mean, you see it. Will Richard goes and puts up 25 points, which is his second high, because I think 30 is his high now. And that 24 he had against South Carolina earlier was his career high. So it's just, he steps up every time when the rest of the team is kind of drowsy in the games.
Yeah, and I think it's because I think we actually might have talked about this last week too. I think part of it is because I think one thing I appreciate about Will Richard is that he's pretty good at picking his spots.
Yep.
Like, I think, as good as Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin are, I think there are times where they just take irresponsible shots. And like, it's hard to get too mad at Clayton for doing it because a lot of times he hits them. But, in a game like last night where he really wasn't, like, Richard just doesn't Richard takes good shot attempts, and because of
he
that,
had like one heat check in the game last night.
And and you know what? If you're 6 of 9 from 3 and 9 of 13 overall, take a heat check, man. Like by all means, go for it. Like, that's usually my attitude with Clayton. But I appreciate, and I think like we said it, like when Richard has his off shooting nights, he doesn't go 2 of 12. You know what I mean? He doesn't keep shooting when it's not his night, and he doesn't force bad shots. So I think that allows him to kind of, when they've taken everyone else away, to kind of be the guy that emerges.
Yeah, and even like his game against LSU, he had 0 points. I believe he had a team leading. Yeah, he had 5 assists, which led the team in assists in that game. And it's like he didn't hurt the team. He only went 0 of 3. So he's not necessarily impacting the team negatively. And, has the 5 assists, has 3 rebounds, has a steal. So even in those bad games for him, it's still doing positive for the team. And it's kind of the same was with Clayton in this game. You had the coach, Todd Golden, talk about it after the game. He was saying, Walt, maybe he has an ineffective night shooting, but defensively and assists-wise, he had 4 assists in this game, a steal, 2 rebounds. Like, he's still doing other things to help out the team and played pretty well defense. I mean, we all played pretty well defense in that night, especially Elijah Martin. She shut out Wade Taylor in the first half. Yeah. Wade Taylor had 0 points in the first half, I believe. Or he had like 2 or 0 points in the first half.
Correct. All 11 of his points were in the second half. And yeah, still held them only to 11 points. One of the best offensive guards in the SEC.
And 4 of the points were from the free throw line. He went 1 of 7 from 3.
Yeah.
I remember he hit the 1-3, which I think is when they cut it to 6 points. And he had like another layup like 2 minutes ago before that in the game. And I had someone say, "Oh, Wade Taylor is starting to heat up. This game's over." Yeah, Wade Taylor went on to score, I think, 2 more points and missed like another 3 3-pointers. So this game was not over.
Yeah. No, I mean, just defensively, this was such a good game. And I think it was fitting that Todd, when they asked him on game day, what's different about this team that's going to allow it to make a deeper run, it is the defense. They don't, there were so many games last year, obviously, including the one that got them sent home in March, where they did everything right on offense and the other team was just even better. And that just has not really, maybe with the exception of like the Kentucky and Missouri games, I guess, hasn't really and I guess Georgia now, but I mean, even Georgia, Florida, I mean, like the Gators were jacked up for a lot of that game offensively, and they got it right in time to come back. But, I think the way this team defends, I mean, holding them under 40%, shutting down their best player, they can really just beat you in so many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, the fouls in this game are mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that it always happens with Texas A&M, so it's like it's a skill thing. But I feel like you just watch some of these calls they're making and giving them and ones on plays where they just get an open layup.
Yeah.
And then the next drive, I see him push Walter Clayton and no fouls. I mean,
you're absolutely right. I will say, I think like part of it is self-inflicted from the Gators because they just keep jacking threes, like drive to the lane and try to get a call. Like, and I understand like there were situations where it was imbalanced or whatever, but like at the same time, like you got to go get those whistles. Like, don't just be taking threes.
I also feel like Walter Clayton was getting abused in this game.
Oh yeah. Walter Clayton doesn't get fouls called like on him, like against him. You know what I mean? Like you're allowed to foul Walter Clayton in this league for whatever reason.
It's like the opposite of Wade Taylor.
Yeah.
I mean, Wade Taylor only had 4 free throws in this game. I don't know how many times he was fouled, but I saw in his last game with like 10 minutes left, he shot 11 free throws. And I think he leads the SEC in free throws. And as a guard, that is pretty wild to think about. Yeah. You're leading the SEC in free throws.
Yeah.
And you also look at Alex Condon. I mean, he went 5 of 5 from 2, but he went 1 of 5 from free throw. He was 0 for 4 with, I think we were up by 10 points, 12. I think we were up 12 points at the end of the game, like the final 2 minutes. And he had just missed his 4th straight. He's about to shoot his 5th. And the guys behind me go, "Yo, I bet you $5 he makes this one." And another one's like, "Oh, that's easy money. He's going to miss." And he made it. Yeah. And they're like cheering or booing. I mean, after last game against Georgia, where he was the only one who could make free throws. Or he went like 8 of 9 or 7 of 8 from free throw from the charity stripe. It's kind of funny how it just flips like that.
I will say, like, that is it. The free throw thing is a little, I'm not like panicking about it. That is a little concerning to me because it hasn't been an issue so far this season. Probably single-handedly cost you the Georgia game. And like, I mean, 11 of 16 last night, like that's fine. It's not awful, but like it has been a strength this year, and it has not been a strength in these last couple games.
And all of those misses, the difference is we had 6 in the Georgia game. We had 6 misses from our guards. In this game, we had none. The 5 misses was 1 from Micah Hanglotten, and we had 4 from Alex Condon. I think there's a pretty big difference in that.
That is true. No, that is true, but Condon just gets fouled a lot. Like, we need Condon to be better at the line because he gets those opportunities.
Absolutely. And what Rob is saying here, those were wide open threes. I'm not sure.
Like, I think he's responding to me saying that we should be shooting less threes and driving more. Like that.
Okay. To that. And then Aberdeen and Clayton were getting mugged with no calls. I mean, that's kind of what I was saying. I think they really got to Aberdeen more than Clayton. I mean, Clayton's an experienced player. This is his 3rd year starting, 2nd in the SEC. So
did he start 2 years at Iona, or is it just 1?
I don't think so. I think he averaged he averaged like 7 points per game 5 points per game his freshman year.
Okay.
So I don't think he started. I can double check that real quick.
It's not that important to the discussion.
Yeah, he averaged 7.3 points in his freshman season, so he may have started. But yeah, let's see. Anything else? I mean, Klavzar, he missed his threes, did his free throws, finished the game with 4 points. Free throws literally cost us Kentucky, Mizzou, and UGA. Georgia, yes and no. I mean,
I say 100% against Georgia.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
I think what cost us more is going down by 26 points in the first 13 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. But in spite of that, if you hit the free throws, you still win. Like, that's kind of where I'm at.
If Elijah
Kentucky, Kentucky, like, you gave up 106 points. Like,
you also say we gave up 106 points. Like, Kentucky had a generational night shooting the ball.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that's all, but I'm saying that's what cost us that game, is what I'm saying. I wouldn't say the free throws. Yeah. I mean, even though the free throws cost us an opportunity to win it, like, you can't really ever expect to win a game where you give up 106 points.
We did miss 13 free throws against Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, that hurt. I mean,
Clayton misses 4 free throws.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, to me, it's like that's not the biggest issue in a game where you give up 106 points. And you're not going to win. I mean, that's kind of just what happens. I mean, if a team's shooting that well against you, you're probably not going to win. It's like exactly what we saw the other night. But the only reason they had a chance because Georgia only shot 37% in the second half or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that that Kentucky game, we lose by 6, and Clayton missed 4, and so did Elijah Martin.
That's tough.
That's just that's tough.
No denying that.
And Condon missed 5. Like, I mean, if we score 110 points, we're so happy we won. And it's like, I mean, we gave up 106, so obviously they're going to be questioning our defense. But when we're at this point and we're looking back on it, then we're perfectly happy knowing that the defense improved.
Well, it's also just, I mean, like, I don't even think Florida's losses have been bad defense. Like, I feel like Florida's losses are just the other team. I mean, Georgia literally could not miss for a 20-minute stretch in that game. I mean, it was just unbelievable.
Yeah. This one as well, against Missouri, Clayton got fouled on the 3, and he missed 2 free throws. I mean, it's so weird to look at Walter Clayton because he's hit so many clutch shots. I mean, Colorado, he hits a pretty clutch shot that tied it. Wish sent it to overtime. And you look at Kentucky, that did send it to overtime, and he hit some threes against them to win it. But he also misses like free throws in clutch situations a lot. Go back to the Virginia game, his first game here. I think he had a very similar situation where he got fouled on a 3-pointer and missed 2 free throws.
I do vaguely remember that.
It's definitely happened. I think it also happened, like, not that specific, but like I think he missed free throws in the crunch time against Kentucky. I think he started like 7 of 7 from free throws, and then missed like some of his last 4, whatever that number is. All right. Let's see. Any other players? I mean, we kind of just brushed over Thomas Houck having 17 points.
We've come to expect that from Thomas Houck at this point.
Absolutely. And it's like he only had 3 rebounds. That is interesting there. Yeah. And 1 assist or 2 assists. Sorry. And what do you think the starting lineup should be? It's a very tough question now.
It is tough. It is tough. I
3
still
think locked in.
Yeah. I still think you got to go Condon and Chinyelu.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's reasons to like, I think what you pointed that out where Mike is maybe excelling over Chinyelu, but I think what Chinyelu brings to the table offensively is too valuable.
Yeah.
And I think Condon, I mean, you have to have Condon on the court once he's at the point where he's, feels good starting and he's kind of back to 100%. So like, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I kind of just want to revert back to where they had it, to be honest with you, in spite of all these guys breaking out, because I feel like these guys breaking out function pretty well as guys you bring in as 6th and 7th men and play a lot of minutes.
I think you can also do bait matchup wise. I also think going to Alabama, which we're going to make a prediction here soon, they don't have the skilled bigs like we saw from Texas A&M, where Pharrell Payne was making some pretty tough shots in the paint.
Yeah.
On just a bit too much for him. Where they have Cliff Amorie, who is not that good offensively, like what Payne was or what the bigs for Texas A&M were doing. So I do think it matches more bully ball style with Chinyalu. It's a different type of bully style than we get from A&M, but I do think he works a bit better against Alabama, and I think he's also going to be able to score because I think we're a bit taller. I'm not sure. How tall is Cliff Amorie? I'm looking it up right here. Big Cliff is 6'11". His wingspan is, I mean, I know he was like the leading blocker in the Big Ten when he left Rutgers. Okay. Oh, 7'6" wingspan. Okay, so he's like for matchup perfectly with Chinyalu. That's like exactly what he is. 6'11" and 7'6" wingspan. Well, that's a pretty even matchup, actually. But still, the less skillful bigs for A&M for Alabama was a better matchup for Chinyalu than they were for A&M.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, what is this? So Rob has Aberdeen, Clayton, Richard, Condon, Chinyalu, and closing Clayton, Marchard, Richard, Hauk, and Condon. I don't know. I think you start Elijah Martin. Your best defender.
I mean, yeah, that's the problem. His defense is too good. I see what you're saying, and I think Aberdeen's a lot of times like outplays him overall, but I just think you need Martin's defense in the backcourt. And I think that's probably where he's going for with having him close. So you have that defense, in crunch time. I kind of get the point there. I mean, I guess in terms of starting, I guess we should probably be like, frame it more as actually like which five get the most minutes versus like which five start the game.
Yeah, I mean, look at Chinyalu. He started, but he only got 7 minutes last night against Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Again, I think that's more matchup wise. Less, I mean, I think these are all guys that are good enough to start for us and us be a championship level team.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Let's make some picks here for this Alabama game. Florida travels to Tuscaloosa on Wednesday, 7:00. Very exciting game here. Top 10 matchup. I don't think Bama is going to drop outside the top 10. No, because they got a big win earlier in the midweek, didn't they?
Who'd they beat?
Alabama.
Kentucky, right?
That's right, yeah. Mississippi State.
Oh, Mississippi State.
Near 40-piece Mississippi State on Tuesday night.
Oh, that's right. That's
11 to 73-point win.
Yeah.
Then on the road at Tennessee, and a heartbreaker for them, Jemai Meshack hits a near half-court three to win it at the buzzer. Oh, man, that was crazy.
And he only got the opportunity because Alabama had the ball and got a 5-second violation when they had a timeout.
Mm-hmm.
They had a timeout. And Nate Oates even said that. Like, he, after the game, like, said it's my fault. I handled that end of the game poorly. Yeah. It's like, credit to you for owning it. But yeah, you did, because there's just no reason that shot should have even been allowed to happen.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Meshack hitting that. Not even Lanier.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I was like, I assumed it was Chaz Lanier.
Yeah.
But then I heard him say Meshack. I mean, I was surprised. But yeah, so Alabama should still be in the AP top 10. We'll probably be 5 or 4. The AP voters usually have a weekend-based weekend bias. Like, they're going to see us beating A&M and be like, okay, maybe they don't drop us, or maybe they just have Houston jump us. So, like, at worst, probably 5. But where are you going to go with this game?
I think I just honestly haven't been incredibly impressed when I've watched Alabama. Like, there have been moments, but just when I see them play the best teams in the league, they just, like, they looked pretty outclassed against Auburn for most of that game. Like, I mean, they led for a lot of the game yesterday, but couldn't pull away. There's just nothing about them that screams like, I really don't like this matchup against the Gators. I think it's gonna be tough, and winning on the, like, if this game were in Gainesville, I think I'd be pretty confidently picking Florida. I'm not confidently picking Florida because it's in Tuscaloosa. I think the Gators win, though. I'll say they win like 83-77 or something like that.
Wow. I mean, I'm looking back at Alabama in conference play. 88 or 86, 88. Okay, 64 against Ole Miss. 102, 103, 80, 88, 90, 85, 103, 85, 98, 96, 111, and 76.
How much
So
did they score on Auburn?
they scored 85 on Auburn.
Okay.
Mark Sears has been playing out of his mind the past couple of games. Against Tennessee last night or yesterday, he had 24. I know when he had crazy against Mississippi State. Let's see. He had 21. Okay, 21 against Mississippi State. He had 30 against Kentucky. Against Missouri, where they gave up 110, he had 35. Like, Mark Sears is playing really good basketball. But you know who else is playing really good basketball? And we just saw him lock down another top guard in the SEC, Elijah Martin. I mean, Rob here, Martin and Clayton are both ball-dominating guards. It's hard to get hot when both are on the court. I think it's hard for the other team to get hot when both are on the court because Elijah Martin's defense is just drenching. I mean, just not getting much room on him. And then you have Will Richard, who is a great combo with him, and Clayton, who's also playing some pretty good defense, as well as bigs who can guard the paint and guard their guards if they have to. It's one of the most funny / awesome things I see us do is when we have our big men on their guards. I don't think we hold them under 80 because it is at Alabama. They're probably going to shoot really well, but I don't think Alabama holds us under 90. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm also going to take the Gators. I'm going to take the Gators 93-89.
Ooh, okay. Wow, that's a lot of points.
It is. This Alabama offense, they just have so much talent.
I mean, I can. I'm not saying like I can see that happening. That's just if that happens, that's just a lot of points.
I mean, you have Alabama, who's number 3 in offensive efficiency, and us, who are number 4. I mean, the difference is we're number 7 in defensive efficiency, and they're 37. Like they're not horrible defensively, but I also think they might be a bit overrated by some teams having bad shooting nights. I mean, look at it. Missouri put up 110 points on them. Auburn put up 94 on them. I mean, Texas, not the greatest offense, put up 80. And I think Trey Johnson had like 30 that game. Like, players are going off versus Alabama. And if this team is locked in to start this game, I see no reason we shouldn't be able to hang and beat them.
Outside of Kentucky, is the 88 we gave up to Georgia? Is that the most points we've given up outside of the Kentucky game? Have we given up 90 in any other games this year? I think you might be muted again, by the way, Tyler.
Oh my God. Did my whole thing about my whole last statement just like go unsaid?
You were just muted like just now for like whatever you were saying for like 2 seconds.
Okay. That's weird. My mic just okay. All right. So then you just asked, is that 88 that we've given up the most we've given up? Missouri 83, Texas 60, 81 to Auburn. So yeah, that 88 is the highest we've given up besides the 100 points we gave up to 106 we gave up to Kentucky.
So Florida hasn't given up 90 in a game except for the one where Kentucky shot 60% at home.
Yes.
So, okay. Interesting. I mean, something's going to give.
Something is going to give. Yeah, I mean, Ken Palm gives us a 49% chance to win it. This game's 50-50. We were just favored at 51% less than a week ago. Yeah, like here what Rob says, it depends on how the Gators are shooting. And what I was just bringing up, I think before Bryce I was getting muted, was as long as this team is locked in and ready to go for the game, I think we'll be fine. Like the Georgia game, you can tell they came out sloppy. Even going back to South Carolina, the first South Carolina game, we kind of came out sloppy. And the Arkansas game, even going way back into the season. So I think as long as they come out and ready to play, I think we'll win. I think that 4 points is kind of me expecting Bama to hit some tough shots. Or I said 89, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's more me expecting them to hit some tough shots instead of us playing bad defense. I mean, they're a really good offense. So
And
it's
it's
like
two, by the way, Rob. I just looked it up too. But there's also an 89 in here, an 88 in here, an 86 and two 89s in here. Like, so they've gotten close a handful of times, but only twice, and one of them was a loss.
We do let off the gas a lot later in games. Like Wichita State, we could have scored 100 on them easily. Let's see, Arizona State probably could have. North Florida, we scored 99. Or well, that we're talking about. Sorry, we're talking about 90, not 100. We haven't scored 100 yet all season.
We did in the Kentucky game. It was 106.
Oh yeah, we haven't won a game where we scored 100 points. And then real quick, Ole Miss. Quick prediction for it the last home game of the season. Last game of the season.
I mean, it's scary because they're good, and especially if you beat Alabama and you kind of go into that game like riding high. This team has been playing such good basketball at home. I really don't see it. I think if you lose to Alabama, I think they come back into that game really focused to close out the year.
Yep.
And even if they do beat Alabama, like I think they are able to ride that momentum, do a home win over an Ole Miss team that is good, but is really inconsistent. Like they've had some really bad showings in SEC play. So,
yep.
I think if I had to give a score for that one, I'd probably say Florida wins it like, 88 to 74, something like that.
Yeah, that's about what I'm thinking. Like if we lose, I think we beat them by 20 plus. If we win, I think it's like 10 plus ish area. Although I do see a small chance of them winning. I mean, Ole Miss, they end the season home against Tennessee and at Florida. So they have a pretty big chance. Hey, we're cheering for them to beat Tennessee. If Tennessee loses that game, which is also on Wednesday, then I would say we control our path to a 1 seed.
Probably need a loss from Houston or Tennessee, but yeah, if
Tennessee loses,
I'm walking that out in my mind. I'm like, yeah, if one of them loses, then I'd say Florida probably needs to have like a decently respectable SEC tournament.
I don't think the SEC tournament matters as much. I mean, unless you're saying if Tennessee also wins.
Well, I guess I'm more just saying, like, even if one of them loses, if Florida like gets upset in its first SEC tournament game,
maybe the first game.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah. Well, because I mean, if Florida's going to have the double bye, so or at least,
I was about to should.
I mean, at least should. I guess I shouldn't say like will, but we're
currently the 2 seed. If we beat Alabama, we are secured the 2 seed. If we lose, we should still get the at least 4 seed, but there is the chance that Missouri wins out, which at Oklahoma and against Kentucky is possible.
Probably, maybe even likely that they win both of those games.
I mean, especially coming off a heartbreaking loss. Did you see that Vanderbilt game and how that ended?
No, I saw. I didn't see how it ended. I saw that they lost, but not what actually happened.
Vanderbilt held a 3 with 2 seconds left to tie it, and then they were just able to win it in overtime.
Oof.
It was a tough 3 too. Like they played good defense there, and Vanderbilt just a tough 3 to tie it with 2 seconds to send to OT. So it's like just beat Bama, and we have a double bye, and we're the 2 seed guaranteed. So that's really where I'm at with that. And then with the NCAA tournament, all you can do is win out, and if that's not enough, it's unfortunate. This would be the number 1 or number 2 seeds most seasons in college basketball. We just get the one where you have Auburn with the best resume maybe in college basketball history.
What do they have? 15 quad 1 wins now? 15 or 16 quad 1 wins?
Something like that. I mean,
they had 14. They've added 2 since then. So unless any of their prior quad 1 games got demoted to quad 2, they have 16, which is possible.
Auburn team sheet real quick.
They are 16-2. They are 16-2 in quad 1 games.
And they end it with 2 more quad 1 games left.
It could be 18-2 in quad one games would just be absolutely unbelievable.
And it's likely they're favored to do that. Like, that's the crazy part.
Those are tough games. I mean, at A&M, Auburn at home, Alabama
Yeah.
at home, that is about as tough a close as you're going to get. But I mean, yeah, I'd take them in both those games. Definitely Alabama at home.
Yeah.
A&M on the road is interesting.
I mean, A&M now on what, 4-game losing streak?
Yeah, something like that.
So, I mean, that is kind of a Buzz Williams spot now, but like, the team just isn't playing that good of basketball at this point. They're just so limited offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was saying, like, you have Auburn, best resume in college basketball history. You have Duke, who is one of the highest graded. They're now above Auburn and KenPom by 2 whole points. Or no, sorry,
Crazy.
Nearly 2 whole. They're a point and a half above Auburn.
Still
at a 39. Can I look up the all-time rankings for highest KenPom grades? Like,
yeah, I mean that's pretty crazy.
The best KenPom. Okay, so the past 10 years. Oh my goodness. Kentucky in 2014, 2015 was a 36.91.
Wait, so they're higher than that Kentucky? Like, there's multiple teams higher than that Kentucky team?
Yep, and Houston is just a point behind them. And we're, 6 points, but that's just wild. I mean, we're maybe it's all the experience coming back. And then, but it's not even that. I mean, Duke has 4 freshmen starting. I do think Duke is a little bit weaker after losing Tyrese Proctor. So,
yeah,
we'll see how they play out in March.
He'll be back. He's supposed to be back for the tournament, though.
I thought it said he was out for the season.
Oh, unless that's an update, because Shire had said after it that they just thought it was that he'd be back.
Tyrese Proctor injury status.
Maybe I'm wrong. I might be confusing him with Malik Brown because they had another guy get hurt who is definitely coming back. I don't think Malik Brown's back yet either, but maybe I might be wrong about Proctor. I might have missed something there.
Oh, okay, so no, I also I guess heard something. He would miss Duke's Saturday night contest against Florida State, but could return in the near future. Okay. I must have heard someone else then. Yeah, okay. Duke play Zach. I mean, that's what's happening. They're just beating up on bad teams.
I mean, also they have as many quad 1 wins as Florida does. They played a tough non-conference.
They did, but resume wise, we're equal.
Yeah,
they just have the metrics that are insane. Because sorry, but beating FSU and Miami by 40 points, it shouldn't make you the highest graded team in KenPom history.
Probably not. Probably not, yeah. Especially when there's a team with 16 quad 1 wins.
Exactly. Flag, Knipple, Malgoa, they're all good and all, but 39.09. The second highest team was Gonzaga, who was a low 36 as well. They didn't even win the championship, so I wonder what they were before they lost. Because these are after March instead of the season. All quad 1 games aren't the same, but we beat 2 number 1 teams. Yeah. This is Florida's argument to being a 1 seed.
Well,
is okay.
Duke beat Auburn. Duke beat Auburn too. I see. No, you're absolutely right. That is true. But Duke did beat Auburn as well.
Yeah, I was gonna point out for Florida. People point out Florida has 6 quad 1 wins now or 5, but it's not all quad 1 games.
6-4. Okay. Florida 6-4. Duke 6-3.
All quad 1 games aren't the same. Sorry, but you bring that up, Florida's wins, quad 1 wins. Number 12, Texas A&M. Number 1, Auburn. Number 6, Tennessee. And maybe Tennessee's 5 right now. Maybe 5. Yeah, I think 5. And Alabama was 6. I'm talking about AP poll. Just keep it simple. Okay.
They're also 5 in the net.
Okay, so our quad 1 wins are going to be crazy quad 1 wins against top 15, top 10, top 1, top 5 level teams.
Well, two of them are Arkansas and North Carolina, but yeah, outside of those, the rest of them are very good. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Georgia, who's now on fire, it seems, just blew out Texas, who's 33 in the net now. Georgia's 33 in the net.
Yeah.
They could have a quad one win, so.
Very close. Yeah, that if Georgia keeps winning, there's a very good chance that home win becomes quad one, which 30-point home quad one win's pretty nice. Hopefully that happens.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Georgia's, 33 right now in the net.
Yeah.
Just above the Tritons of San Diego. Shout out. Again, they're so good.
They're looking good. They're like in good at-large position from what I'm reading.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. Like, pretty good. And then what is this here? LSU's 82 in the net. Like, we have like 2 or 3 games that are a couple spots away from being quad one that would put you right there with like Tennessee's and Alabama, who most people have right above us. I've seen some people that have us above Tennessee or Bama. It's really close right now. So all we can do is win and hope that it's enough for us. All righty. Oh, man, that was a lot of basketball talk.
That was a lot of basketball talk.
I mean, hey, it's March. It's March Madness season.
Yeah. We've only got 1 week left in the season.
We do. I mean, we already got conference tournaments starting this week.
Oh, yeah, the first ones. I think there's games tonight. I think the A-Sun has the beginning of their tournaments tonight, I'm pretty sure. Because they do the weird thing where they play all their games at home. So they have to play their tournament games. Like there's games on Sunday and then games on Tuesday. Yeah, because they have to build time for everyone to travel to home sites because there's no centralized tournament site. So they play the games like really spaced out throughout the week. So yeah, if you're looking for something to do, obviously when our show's done, not right now, but if you're looking for something to do tonight, there's conference tournament basketball.
Yeah, right now you have 2 games going on. You have North Florida up by 5 on Austin P, as well as Central Arkansas nearly tied with Stetson. Hey, 2 Florida teams right there in close games for the A-Sun. So go Florida teams. Mad Hatters and the North Florida. Where are the North Florida?
They're a bird.
No,
the Ospreys. They're the Ospreys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, what happened in North Florida? They upset South Carolina and Georgia Tech to start the season. And then things just fell apart.
Well, those turned out to be like less impressive wins than like beating quite a few mid-major teams, especially in Georgia Tech's case.
Yeah, but like South Carolina, that's a good win. Like at South Carolina,
sure. Didn't they give Georgia a run for their money too?
Yeah, I was just about to say they only lost by 13 in a game that I think was like within 5 within the final couple minutes.
Yeah,
I think they lost somebody who's really good. I'm not sure which player it was though. Like early in the season, like I think they got injured before our game against them, and then 55-point win on them.
Yeah, we beat them bad.
Yeah. Oh man, spring practice is about to start this Thursday, March 6th. Spring practice opens. We'll start getting highlights. We'll start getting footage from the freshmen, the experienced players, maybe some guys that are going to break out that we didn't expect. Like we had Jada Robinson, I think I had as my breakout player. Or did you? I think we might have both had him as our breakout
I think I had him as like underrated or something or whatever. The
equivalent of underrated.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Okay, yeah. So maybe this is what we're starting to see some of those guys break out. But we still have 1 position or 2 positions. We're also going to do some special teams, but that's a little less. But we got the entire DB room to break down before this Thursday. And I think we'll just break down and grade. And I think we'll start the nickel position because I think it's a pretty interesting position. Like it's pretty cut and clear, but there are some things that can change. Like the 3 guys in this room I'm looking at, Aaron Gates, Sheriff Denson, and Michael Caraway Jr. It's going to be a rotation of those 3 guys. But the big question is Aaron Gates, is he going to be healthy? He got that injury against FSU on that first drive, I think. Yeah, on that first drive against FSU, he suffered that injury, missed the rest of the season. I don't think he's going to be back here in spring. I mean, yeah, he's like probably not going to be back here in spring. We're talking about him not being ready for the season. But when we get to the season, the big question is going to be, is Aaron Gates healthy enough to play and play as well and not better going into the 2025 season?
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of the major caveat with this room is we don't know how healthy it is. I mean, I will say, I think at its best, this is a pretty good room, in my
Yep.
opinion. Between Sharif Denson, and, both Sharif Denson and Gates are guys who have had pretty solid, quite a bit of experience and have looked pretty good when playing. So I think you feel pretty solid about those. Caraway, like, has at least has played. It's nothing. I mean, that sounded way more backhanded than I meant it to. That honestly, I didn't mean for that to sound as catty as it did. No, like it's not, his numbers and production at Southern Miss don't blow you away. But it's experience and probably experience depth. He's probably not a guy that's going to see a ton of starting time here unless there's injuries or, Gates isn't ready to play. So I feel pretty good about these guys if Gates is healthy. And maybe even if not, but especially if he is.
That's kind of where I'm at. Like, the grading of this room is way different if Gates is healthy. I mean, I think like 3 straight weeks back when we were doing our top 5, bottom 5s, one of us had Aaron Gates in that top 5.
Yeah.
Like going back to the LSU Ole Miss games and going back to those 2 games specifically, probably had Aaron Gates in our top 5. So the way I grade this room, I'm going to give it 2 grades. One is if Aaron Gates is healthy, and one is if he's not. If Aaron Gates is healthy, I'm going to give it a B+, because I don't think we're up to the point where Aaron Gates is like a guaranteed A type of guy. But I do think we saw the flashes and we saw a good all-around play from him. But it was also only a couple games stretch, really. And then you also still have Sharif Denson, who has played pretty good time here at Florida. And you bring in the experienced guy in Michael Caraway. I think if Gates isn't healthy, I think it goes all the way down to a C+. I think it's a full letter grade drop because you're only playing 2 players. And it's like Denson is good, but then you have to worry about the injuries.
Yeah.
Because if Denson gets hurt, then you're down to just like Michael Caraway, or Caraway gets hurt, you're just down to Denson. And then you're going to what? Alfonso Allen?
Yeah.
I mean, the walk-on.
Hey, he had a pick.
He did have a pick. That is true. So if healthy, B+, but with like the upside of like an A. But if injured, it's like a C+ because it could go so wrong.
I actually think maybe you're being a little harsh there. I mean, I totally see what you're saying. B+ is the grade that came to my mind too. I'm not sure how much I feel like I need to qualify it though, because I think Aaron Gates, I expect will be back at some point this fall, even if it's not week 1. Like, I think you'll get him. I mean, obviously, like, you don't know. I mean, maybe he is not fully recovered, but like, assuming he is, whenever he does come back, even if it's not right away, like between Sharif, who's played a decent amount and has been solid, and Caraway, who, like, I will just say, like, those do seem to be the guys like him are the transfers that do seem to hit at the highest rate. Like guys that were decent contributors on a bad team entering a better system with more talent around them, like seem to be the guys that do pretty well. Like I could totally see this being worse than a B+. I could see it being better than a B+, but like B+ to me just kind of feels right because of the fact that Aaron Gates is hurt. And I don't think this is a disastrous room. That to me is why it's a B+ room, because I think the room is all right. Assuming no more injuries, but you can't assume that there's going to be injuries.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm assuming injuries, it's kind of just like Gates is already injured, so we don't know if he'll be healthy. It's kind of like when we graded the nose tackle room. And, I mean, I didn't give it 2 grades. I could have, but like Jamari Lyons, whether he's going to be healthy or not is a big deal. But it's like you're going to have some people get banged up. That's just going to happen. And if you only have 2 guys in that room, it could get bad, especially when you play with such high talent in the SEC. And the slot position is probably one of the most talented positions in all of college football, especially the South.
I do wonder if maybe, if you were to find yourself in some sort of disastrous injury situation here, if one of these freshmen, maybe like one of the freshman safeties, could step in and do this. I mean, I'm not sure if
That's a
they're
good point.
ready for that, but I feel like you've got to kind of factor that in as the next level of depth, be it behind, like, rather than like Alfonso Allen. Like, I think you're going to be looking at one of those. We'd probably be looking at one of those young DBs stepping in, like Aaron Gates and Sharif have to this point in their careers.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Josiah Davis is also a name we might mention here if there's enough injuries. Like,
Yeah.
from what I heard, he came in here as a return specialist, but he does have safety experience and everything. That's what he was listed at coming out of high school. So I said we both give it B+, assuming it's healthy. Let's move to cornerbacks now. This is such an interesting one because I could see us both having it in such a different variety of ways here. The big names here: Devin Moore, Dijon Johnson, Jameer Grimesley, Cormani McClain, Teddy Foster, maybe, and then the freshmen Ben Hanks and Onis Konabani. Am I missing anyone? Michael Caraway maybe as well.
Oh yeah, I mean Caraway can probably play on the outside too if need be. You said Grimsley?
I did say Grimsley, yeah.
Okay, yeah, then I think you kind of nailed it.
All right, sweet. I'll let you start off on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, corner to me, it's hard for me to even know how to look at it because, like, on its face, it looks fine. Like, you've got Devin Moore, who has been really good when healthy. You have Dijon, who was impressive last year at a lot of times. You know, Cormani, we'll see. He's a really talented player, though, and he had bad moments, had obviously a really good moment last year.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we'll kind of see what happens with him. You know, my issue though is like I mean, I know I just said you can't assume injuries are going to happen, but I'm gonna put an exception to my own rule here because I don't know if I believe that Devin Moore can get through a season healthy, and if he can't, I think things get kind of dicey here pretty quick. I don't think there's a lot of proven depth, and I mean, you could pretty easily be at a point where if Ben Hanks and or Onis are not in a position to be major contributors right away, you could have some issue. I mean, you know, if Caraway's not ready for the SEC, if those guys aren't developed enough as true freshmen, I could easily see this being a disaster, but it was also a strength for the team last year when healthy. Obviously, they lose Jason Marshall, but, you know, I still think this group, when healthy, is pretty good at the top. I think you're pretty hard pressed to find anyone that you feel great starting on the outside, though, other than those top two guys.
Yeah, we did see Cormani. I saw some pictures he's released. Like, it looks like he's put up a little bit of weight.
That's good.
His main issue. But yeah, I mean, I know what you mean there. I had Ben Hanks as my number one freshman that could break out here on this defense. So I do feel a bit confident, like not overly confident, like, okay, we're all good. But like, okay, I think he's going to do well. I don't know how much to expect from Onis as a freshman. And then it's like Grimesley. We saw him a decent bit at the end of the year, thanks to all those injuries we had. But I mean, it's we'll see. Like, I mean, we had Bridges last year step up from out of nowhere, really. So maybe we'll have someone else step up, and maybe it's just Alfonso Allen again.
Maybe just keeps getting interceptions.
All right, I'll let you give it your grade.
Yeah, I feel like honestly this might even be a little too optimistic here. But I do really like the top end here. Like I think if you stay healthy, this is a good group. I think there's enough depth options that I could be sold. You find two guys who are capable of being solid, you know, backups among that group. Like maybe I'm even being too bullish here. I've got it a B-.
Okay.
And that, I mean, that even feels like I could very easily be talked into like a C+, but I'll round up to B- just because I am very high on Devin Moore and Dijon when they're healthy.
Yeah, I see that. Who do we hire as the new corners coach? I just completely forgot.
why can't I remember his name? He was Arkansas and then
That's right, Deron Wilson.
then Georgia State. Yeah, thank you, Georgia State
Yeah,
defensive coordinator. Yeah, I just his name completely
it
escaped my
happened
mind.
really quickly, so it's just like
Yeah,
unusual for Billy.
true.
So
Making any decision quickly, that's not my Billy Napier.
no, that B minus, like I was kind of thinking B plus because
Ooh,
again, I
okay.
do
So I'm
really
not
like
so I'm
Devin.
not being too bullish. Okay.
Well, again, it's like you talked about injuries. No,
Yeah.
um, Devin Moore can't get injured for 4 straight years, right?
One would think. One would really think.
Or just do.
Yeah.
And Dijon, he just has that all first team name, you know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Alabama. You know, he's just that corner that has the Dijon Johnson name. It's like, oh, this guy. Okay, yeah, he's a first team corner, all SEC corner. No, but like,
Yeah.
I do really like Devin Moore. And it's like, the injuries could happen again. And I do think the depth is a little better. Like, I do like Grimesley.
Mhm.
You know, Nick Saban really wanted him. He was going to go play for Nick Saban until he got his until Saban retired. And it's like I've already talked about Ben Hanks. I think he's going to break out. I do think he's going to break out. It's not a prediction, or well, it is a prediction. But that's not just me picking a freshman because I have to pick a freshman.
Mhm.
That's like I actually believe he will break out, and I just really like it. I really like the starters, like you said, and I do like the depth a bit more. And we see Cormani put in some weight on, and he is that 5-star name. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna give it a little break here, and maybe I should have gone B, but I think like Ben Hanks being so highly rated also kind of drives it
Mhm.
up.
That's
So
fair.
I decided to go B plus.
That's fair. And I think Rob is right. Like I don't it's not a talent concern here for me. It's just the fact that there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
guys who we just haven't seen play a lot of ball behind the guys who are expected to start. And that could mean anything. I mean, we saw a lot of guys step up this year due to injuries and play pretty well. I just it's hard for me to like I feel like any higher than B minus just requires a little too much projection than what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, I saw something wild. Okay, let's get to the safety room. So I think it's pretty tough for us to figure out who's going to be playing strong and free safety of the new guys coming in. I mean, we know
Hmm.
Jordan Castell is the free safety and Bryce Thornton is the strong safety. But then
Yeah.
after that, you have Greg Smith. I've seen him listed both as free and strong safety. And
Hmm.
then the 2 freshmen. I think I've seen Hilton Stubbs listed as a free safety and Lagonza Hayward as a strong safety. So I think I'll
Hmm.
go with that. Is okay. Yeah, this is a great question. Not officially, I don't expect him to play for us.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask if you had any insight on that specifically, because my assumption has just been he's probably coming back to college football, but not here.
If he does, I wouldn't expect it to be here.
Yeah.
That's where I'll leave it. So, do you want to break them? So how do you want? Do you want to do the safety rooms individually or just go safety in general?
I personally, I kind of think we should just go safety in general. 'Cause I
Okay.
think I think it's a little more instructive to just talk about the group, especially because, like you said, I think there is. I mean, maybe not so much between Thornton and Castell, but I think generally there's some positional flexibility here.
Yeah,
And
there's
it's
some
hard
versatility.
and it's hard to put the freshmen into those specific camps because we don't I mean, again, like we've seen guys get recruited as safeties that kind of emerge more as slot guys. You just don't really know.
Yeah,
So
he's probably going to. I hope he's going to Miami. Oh man, that would be great. Uh, uh oh man, this room sucks now that Will Harris is gone. F minus. No, but
yeah.
so we look at the 2 starters at safety. It's very likely going to be Jordan Castell and Bryce Thornton. I don't look at it as guarantees, but I mean, you look back a couple years ago when going to year 2, Jordan Castell was listed as a true freshman as the starter. He didn't
Hmm.
start, but he was listed as the starter. He should have started. That game probably would have turned out a lot differently. But um, it's not guarantees, but I think they're safe bets. Like 85+% chance they are both the starters going into week 1.
Yeah.
Um, I look at them. I mean, we dogged a lot on Castell throughout the season, middle part of the season specifically. He did have a strong finish. He is a guy that has the measurables for a safety in the SEC and at the next level. We do bring in Vinny Sunseri, who does have a decent history, a track record with the DB unit. And I think now that we have specific coach first safeties and who should be on page with Ron Roberts, which seems like it was a big deal with Will Harris, where they weren't exactly on page about the DB unit and the entire defensive room, which I think is something that we maybe haven't even looked at yet as something that could maybe improve safety play. I think we've seen good tackling from Castell at times. And we've seen Thornton have some pretty good coverage. I mean, obviously, his breakout moment was those 2 picks against Ole Miss to seal the game. So those 2 players, I think at their peak, could be like an A-. And then you go deeper into the room. I think that next name up you're looking at is Greg Smith. I've heard a lot of people. I mean, he's kind of a lot like Jordan Castell in the fact that he has those measurables. He has good speed. We haven't really seen him play, so we don't know like his field vision, his IQ, how good of a tackler he is, and all of that. But I've heard a lot of people harp on this kid and how he's a really good player. He can be a really good player for UF. I think the interesting thing here, a lot of people are looking at, are the 2 freshmen. Because I've seen, I mean, Stubbs was like in the 50s in the rankings, Hayward in like the 80s. I've seen more people say Hayward's more day 1 ready. But I mean, Stubbs was higher rated, so he's going to have a bit more hype coming into the season. And I mean, if I had to guess, if one of these 2 freshmen would break out, I would say Hayward, because again, I've seen him more at strong safety, and I think Thornton's position at strong safety is less secure than Castell's at free safety going into the season and going into spring.
I probably agree with that. I think Thornton had some promising moments down the stretch. I don't know if he did enough to be like, oh yeah, that's your job for sure.
Yep.
I think there's definitely a lot of competition there. I mean, Castell, like, yeah, we've given Castell a lot of grief on this show. I mean, I've been pretty clear with my opinion here that I thought the whole time that Florida should have tried to find an upgrade at safety in the portal. A replacement for either one or both of those guys. They didn't do that. You know, it is what it is. They did initially land that safety who then
Maddox. No, he was going to be a slot.
Was he a slot? Okay. Sorry. Never mind. So no, they didn't do it at all. So, I mean, I will say, like, I think you can do better than Jordan Castell. I think you can also do worse. I mean, I think he's definitely brings like some positives to the table. Like, there's room to believe that he can improve this year. I think, you know, beyond him, like, not a lot of proven. I think it's intriguing though. I mean, because I think Greg Smith's a guy that like got to see a little bit of as a true freshman. You know, curious to see how he's developed. And obviously I think both these incoming true freshmen, you know, I think to varying degrees, we're both high on. And I think we both think, I mean, are you in agreement? Like, I think both of them see the field at least like a,
yeah, I would expect them to see the field and like some sense of the imagination.
Yeah. I mean, I think the ceiling's really high here. I think it's less proven than the cornerback room, but I feel like it is maybe higher upside just because of.
I could have the opposite feeling.
Well, I guess what I should clarify, because I feel like I like the starting corners more. I feel like the depth, I see more upside with the depth at safety is kind of where I'm getting at than the depth at corner.
That's kind of, well, I think the floor is higher for the safety room. I think the corner room ceiling is higher, but the floor is lower. But I think we have a higher floor for the safeties.
That's probably a better way to put it. Mm-hmm.
That's why I was going to say, I think that's why I'm like, my grades are very similar, but they have so much different context for safeties and corners. Because I'll just say, I also have a B+ grade for the safeties, but I don't know how much work. I mean, it can be worse. I mean, if your 2 freshmen just aren't ready, Castell just reverts to how bad he's played in the past, and Thornton, who knows how good Thornton really is? We haven't seen a lot of him, and then Smith as well. So it's like it could have a bad floor, but I don't think it is because there's just so much talent. I mean, Hayward and Stubbs, top 100 guys. Castell, 4-star. Smith, 4-star. Thornton was a high 3-star, I think, but he's also played a little bit. So it's like, I don't see the floor being much lower than like a B-. Well, I could see the corner room completely falling apart.
I could see that. Yeah, and I kind of think about these two rooms pretty similarly to you. I'm just a little bit less high, but I'm also at a B- here for the safeties. For
Oh no,
kind
I
of
had
like
B+.
no, but I'm saying sorry, but I'm saying I have the same grade for safeties and corners. You also have this. Weren't you at a B+
Oh,
for
okay,
corners
yeah.
too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying like I have the same grade for the
you.
safeties and corners, but for pretty different reasons. Like I think I kind of agree. Yeah, I kind of agree with what you said. Like the corner, I mean, especially like, I mean, I guess injuries would probably devastate either group now that I think about it, because there's not really a lot of proven depth anywhere in the secondary.
Yeah.
I think I'm at B-. I'm at B-. Like I think you can find a couple quality safeties from the group that you have. I don't know if you can withstand a lot of injuries. I don't know if there's really the potential for this group to break into like borderline A tier. I'm just not sure the talent is there unless one of these freshmen is just like phenomenal. But I'm not putting that on a freshman. But I do think like I personally like, and you might not agree because of how high you are on Ben Hanks. I kind of think it's more likely that one of the freshman safeties has a breakout than Ben Hanks, just because I think it's easier for safeties to see the field as true freshmen in general. And I just think there's, barring injury, like assuming there people are healthy, I think there's going to be way more opportunities to see the field at safety, because I think both of those positions are fairly battleground positions, whereas I don't really think anyone's competing with Dijon or Devin Moore for a starting job. So
yeah, I think I look at like the past for UF and corners being freshmen and playing good. I mean, Jason Marshall, until this past season, a lot of people said his freshman year was Marshall's best season at Florida. Kyrie Elam in 2019 was obviously really good as a freshman, and so was CJ Henderson. I think Marshall and Elam specifically, they were backups really to start the season, and they kind of were like that third corner, that first guy off the bench maybe, and they had really good minutes in that limited action, which I think that's like where I'm hoping Ben Hanks is, where he's like that third corner, maybe fourth corner, and he stay healthy, and he has some really good minutes in a few possessions where maybe they still have like a little bit tired receivers out there, to where he can maybe make some big plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Like that's valid, and we've seen that happen before for this program. I just think, in like generally speaking, what you like the responsibilities that safeties have are easier for players to kind of plug and play earlier in their careers. And again, it's like I'm not sure Ben Hanks sees the field barring someone getting hurt, whereas like I could see, I mean, or at least sees the field for any like significant playing time. Whereas like I could see one of these freshmen sort of making this almost a platoon safety thing where they kind of are rotating guys early on while they try to figure out, who the best guys are. Because again, I don't think either Castell or Thornton are super established in that job, though we both agree they are the clear leaders in the clubhouse entering spring ball.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it going either way, really. I mean, we saw Devin Moore get early playing time when he wasn't hurt as a freshman. I mean, got playing. He was on the final drive against Utah in his first game.
Yeah.
When we ended up securing the win. So we know Billy trusts. I mean, we know Billy does put freshmen out there. So if Devin Moore, Dijon, or Grimesley isn't playing to the standard that we need them to be, we know he'll put Devin Moore or Ben Hanks or Onis Conan Bandy in. Alrighty, I think we'll just do the special teams unit as one. I mean, there's not much to talk about here. Kicker's going to be Trace Mack. You have Evan Knoll, the freshman, who's going to redshirt. Evan Knoll was like the number 1 rated kicker. I think he was number 1 rated kicker. Hit like a 65-yarder in Arkansas. Yeah,
big time kicker recruit.
Maybe a little bit more interesting here is Tommy Domain. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think Doman.
I
think Tommy Doman. That's how I've assumed it was, but I haven't heard anyone.
Yeah, it makes more sense. Yeah. Transfer from Michigan, senior 1-year guy. That's very likely going to be the starter. You also brought in another freshman, Hayden Craig, who was also like a 5-star punter. I'm not too worried about it. The freshmen, I mean, they are what they are. You'll see what happens. I think the more interesting battles here are the kicking return and punt returns. So I put Tank Hawkins for both punt and kick return. We saw Jaden Ball return kicks last year. I think now that Ball is the solidified starter, or we assume a solidified starter, he won't be returning kicks as much at all, really. Don't think you put him in that position. I also don't think he was the greatest at it. So I think you have a player, you have so much talent in that receiver room, and I think you just got to find a way to get Tank onto the field going into his second season. And I think that kick return, punt return, whichever one you want to do, is that perfect spot for him.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I mean, we've seen Trey do this in the past too. Kind of got to assume with his injury history, we probably won't see Trey do it again this year. Maybe Vernell or like one of the freshman receivers.
I thought about that.
Yeah.
Well, Vernell, I don't think it's going to be Dallas Wilson.
I don't think it'd be Dallas Wilson. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably not either of those guys. But yeah, if it were to be one of the freshmen, it's probably Vernell. But I mean, I think he could maybe be in the mix for that. I mean, I think it depends on how much you're going to use it. Like if he's going to redshirt otherwise, I don't know if you burn a red shirt to have him return. But if he's going to be a factor on offense, which probably will be to some degree, then I think he could be in the mix there. But yeah, I'd love to see Tank. I mean, we've seen it a little bit, like it, obviously had that big touchdown in the Samford game. We've seen the flashes of the speed and the athleticism and the talent there. It'd be kind of nice to see it, kind of used there, because I'm not sure he's going to see a major role on offense this season.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I want to see these freshman receivers that are uber talented get early playing time. So from personnel wise, I like the unit we're trotting out there for special teams all around. I mean, Trey Smack, we saw him end the year after that Georgia game. He was like perfect, hitting multiple 50-yarders. We'll see how good Tommy Doman is as a punter. I've heard he has a good punting leg, not the best accuracy. So
I know is if you were the punter for Michigan last year, you got quite a bit of work. So he's experienced.
He is experienced. That is a very true. So personnel wise, I'll just give it an A- because kicker is really the biggest factor you're talking about here. Hopefully you're not worried about the punter too much, but kicker, I really like Trey Smack. Might be the best kicker in college football. So I'll give it an A-.
I'm an A here, to be honest with you. I'm just a flat A. Yeah, I mean,
I
really like Trey Smack. He's had some really painful misses in tough spots at a couple points in his career. Obviously, the Arkansas one comes to mind, but I think he's, look, Florida was in the kicking wilderness for a couple years after Evan McPherson left, and we saw how bad it can get. And Trey Smack is a really good kicker. Reliable. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that much about Tommy Doman either. I was never blown away with Jeremy Crawshaw. I thought he was fine. No, okay. I thought he was fine. A perfectly fine starting punter. I'm not sure I ever quite understood why people talked about him as an elite punt. I'm not sure I ever saw him do stuff that the Townsend brothers did.
Yeah.
But point I'm just trying to make, this isn't to criticize Jeremy Crawshaw. Point I'm trying to make is I don't really foresee a major drop off from Florida's punting, which has been perfectly fine for a couple years now. So,
yeah, I see that. I know a Michigan fan, and it's obviously fans are going to blow off things that are bad for their team. I mean, I kind of do a lot. So it's he was saying Tommy is not bad, but he's not necessarily good. So that's kind of where I go down down half a grade or a third of a grade there to the A- instead of A.
Yeah, that's understandable.
All right. Wow. I was looking at something a little bit ago, kind of wild. So I was telling you about those Stetson and the A-Sun tournament games. You brought them up. So Stetson is currently down 69-66 with 4:46 left. With 3 minutes and 20 seconds left in the first half, Central Arkansas was up 28-0.
28-0?
With 3 minutes left in the first half.
Oh my God. That's horrific. Wait, who are they playing? Are they playing UNF?
Okay, no. Okay, this is a lie. Sorry. It was a score bug. It was a scoring bug.
Okay.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I was like, that is horrific.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense because I now went to look at the box score, and then I saw Stetson scored. Unless Stetson scored 37 points in 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
It maybe they did.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you remember the LSU game where they scored 14 points in the first half, or like 10 points, and they scored like 55 in the second.
Yeah.
No, but like, okay, sorry, but like, okay, that kind of blew my mind. Some other basketball scores from earlier today that were a bit more effective to the Gators. Michigan State gets a win over number 11 Wisconsin. That keeps them as a 2 seed. That pushes them closer, but there's still a decent gap between us and them.
Yeah.
Like, as long as we beat Ole Miss, we'll at worst be the 6th overall seed. Unless like Michigan State wins out, and like even still. That's a
it's like there's no South Carolina or LSU left on the schedule for the Gators. Like there's no loss that's so disastrous. I see it like tanking them anywhere below a 2 seed. I just don't think that can happen.
Yeah, the more impactful score, I would say, Illinois, who's been on a downward spiral recently. I mean, I guess they beat Iowa. I mean, they beat Iowa by 20, but like that's lost by 43 to Duke in that Madison Square Garden game, lost by 21 to Wisconsin, lost by 14 to Michigan State. Like they have been on a downward spiral with their last win before that being a 5-point win against UCLA at home, and then Minnesota win, and then lost to Rutgers. Like they had just been on a downward spiral. They picked up a 20-point win at Michigan. I mean, Michigan number 15 in the rankings. They've been in that 2-3 seed line. Again, that just creates more gap. That creates a bigger gap between us and raises that floor. Like, that spot we're in right now is maybe the worst we can be. Unless we just lose both our last 2 games in the season.
And even then, I'm not sure I see the Gators falling a seed line.
Oh, we won't fall a seed line at all. I'd be very shocked if we fell a seed line.
Yes, I mean, I think Florida's kind of pretty more or less locked into where it's at. I think it would take a lot and some help to get a 1 seed. I don't know if it's possible to not be a 2 seed. So
okay, well, beat Alabama, and it should have a good chance. Like,
I think there's still more than. I mean, if you look according to Lunardi, and like if you believe Lunardi, like your mileage may vary on that one, but like Lunardi has Tennessee, Alabama, and Houston ahead of the Gators on his seed list.
Well,
so,
yeah.
Like, I don't even know if beating Alabama is enough to get you back in, if that's true.
I think it for sure jumps you over Alabama.
Yeah, obviously.
And then you have a really, really close list with Tennessee, and you still have another quad 1 game. And let's say Georgia pops to top 30 because they're looking really good right now with the 19-point win and the win over us. So that would put us at 7 quad 1 wins plus 2 more at 9. Tennessee would have 11 going into the conference tournament. I don't really want to factor in the conference tournament because we saw last year it didn't matter at all for us. So, yeah, that would put them at 11, have us at 9 quad 1 wins. But then you look at the quad 1 wins, Florida would have the best pair of road wins in the country. Florida would be undefeated on neutral site. We would have like the series spread over Tennessee. I mean, and Tennessee could still lose. I mean, it would be close. I don't know. It's really hard to tell what the committee's thinking right now. Because before the Alabama game, I saw people that had Florida above Tennessee still. It was few, but I saw a couple. So if they both pick up equal wins on Saturday, but then Florida gets a road win against Alabama, maybe that's enough to jump both of them or stay above them. Like, I don't know.
I wouldn't rule it out, but I wouldn't bank on it either.
It would be one of the most intriguing selection
Yeah.
Sundays. If
Yeah.
let's say they both like win one game or 2 games in the NCAA tournament. Like Tennessee, I think would be the 4 seed in the SEC tournament. Sorry, I think Tennessee would be like the 4 seed. Say they would lose to Duke or Auburn in the semifinals, and we lost to like Bama's 3 seed. Although then you might be talking about Bama getting a 1. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I don't think we can really predict it at all right now.
I also don't think I don't think it matters. Like I don't think being a 1 versus a 2 really changes anything that like significantly.
Really, I just want to be a 1 seed to say, hey, we're a 1 seed.
Yeah. I mean, that's always cool. But to me, it's just like Todd's got to just go on a run. Like they just got to get, into the second weekend and beyond. Because it doesn't matter where the seed is. You just got to make that run because it hasn't happened in way too long. For this program.
I do think it does matter being a 1 seed. If we're a 2 seed, then we're either having Duke or Houston in our region. But if we're a 1 seed, I think we're having Michigan State or whoever that other 2 seed is in our region. Because if we're a 1 seed, let's say it's Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida. Well, we couldn't have Tennessee or Alabama in our region. So we would have to take one of the other 2 seeds. Mm-hmm. Which I do think those top 6 teams have a big difference. And I would rather have a Michigan State or Wisconsin. I mean, who do they have in Iowa State even? So Iowa State seems like it's going to be Iowa State, Wisconsin, Michigan State as of today, as those last 2 seeds. Let me actually double check this real quick. Okay, this is wow. This has Clemson as number 9 as a 3 seed. Okay, and Michigan. Okay, no, I'm not going to trust team rankings right now. That just doesn't seem right at all. I mean, maybe it is, but yeah, like. So I think being a 1 seed is a pretty big factor because not having to play Houston or having to play Duke in the Final 4 if we made it there, I do think, or the Elite 8, sorry.
Well, you got to play those teams eventually. Well, whether you play them in the Elite 8 or you play them in the Final 4.
What I'm saying is I'd rather play them in the Final 4 than the Elite 8.
Yeah, I mean, but then there's something to be said for you knock them out of the way earlier, and then that makes the path easier in the later round. Like, I guess to me, my thing is, I think this team's good enough to beat anybody. So, like,
they are, yeah.
To me, it's just like, I mean, obviously, I don't want to be a 4 or 5 seed and then have a really tough first round game, like a tough mid-major first round game.
Oh, well, yeah.
Like, to me, like the playing a 15 versus a 16 and playing a 7 versus an 8, it's like, I think they should be fine in that situation regardless. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying I would rather someone else maybe knocking them out even than us having to be that team to knock them out the NCAA tournament. Because I would rather face a Texas Tech than a Duke.
Maybe. I mean, you're probably right, but Tech looks pretty good. Like they've been hot right now. Yeah.
I mean, they do, but it's also like, are you more scared of Federico or Cooper Flagg?
I mean, in an NCAA tournament game, I don't know. We've seen how these freshman teams sometimes kind of wither when when it matters in the postseason. So we'll see. I'm curious how Duke handles that because we've seen it not go great before in the past.
Yeah, and it's like 4 freshmen starting for Duke.
Yeah, I know. And they're all really, really good players who are going to play in the NBA for a long time. But we'll just see it.
How many of these guys are projected like NBA draft fit, like lottery picks?
Well, Flagg and Knippel are projected top 10 picks.
And then the center, I think, is also projected first rounder, right? Let's see. So you got Flagg, you got Knippel, and then you got Common Malak is also a projected first round pick. Tyrese Proctor, he's a senior, so he is still a projected second round pick.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 4 players right there projected to be drafted. And then maybe another guy, Sion James, projected second round pick. So that's 5 guys right there projected to be drafted. And you probably also have players on that roster that are going to turn to be really good. So
yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, you'd probably rather face less NBA talented teams.
Yeah.
Because they do have lower floors.
Generally
And if
true.
we play, I mean, besides like Auburn.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, we're just ending off the show here. We were talking about Michigan State losing.
Yeah.
And then bracketology, but yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say before we end the show here?
No, I mean, it's just like, look, this is the most fun Florida basketball season, certainly since that Elite Eight team with Mike White. I mean, this regular season has been way more fun even than that was. So
yeah,
I mean, I'm just excited to see what this team can do. You know, obviously big opportunity in these last couple games, but I'm just excited for March basketball to actually mean something. And I'm excited for spring ball. I'm excited to see, we got a lot of freshmen I think that we're excited about. We talked about them today. Yeah, that is true. We talked a little bit about
let's do that a bit,
DK. Montreal was really good too.
Yeah, Montreal really, I think he ran a 4.43, which was a second faster, or I mean, sorry, 0.01 of a second faster than Trevor Etienne. Etienne sang RB2 behind Montreal, so big flex there.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I'm curious if these guys, like, didn't, you know, not really guys that I would have thought would be like big time draft prospects, but they might have made themselves a little bit of money this week.
I don't know about big time draft prospects.
I shouldn't even say big time. Like, I meant like guys that are going to get drafted.
Okay,
like,
yeah. I think DK went from someone that might be drafted to someone who probably will be drafted.
Yeah.
And Badger maybe went from like a 5th round pick to like a 4th. Because he also ran a 4.45.
Honestly, did not see what Badger did at the time. I missed Badger's combine. I didn't see that.
I was talking to somebody about it actually. Okay, that's probably long gone in this chat. Oh wait, 4.43 for Badger.
Okay.
And yeah, okay, that's where that ended there for that. Okay. I had an interesting comp for DK. So in like any physical way, it kind of doesn't make sense. But I think the way you watch them play, Tyler Lockett.
I could maybe see that a little bit.
Well, because like the way you watch him play, I mean, Lockett kind of gets open. He was faster as a younger player. Not the fastest guy. I mean, DK's faster.
I think role wise, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, they're not really very similar like players, but they kind of occupy similar niches in the offense, I feel like.
Well, it's like the way Lockett, you never see him get physical. He gets the ball in his hand, and it's like if it's not open space, he's kind of getting to the ground. Yeah. You don't really see DK make plays with the ball. It's he gets open for his quarterback and doesn't really go initiate contact like we see with Badger, or we saw with like Ricky Pearsall being able to create space and stuff. So I do think they have different or less physical styles to their play.
Yeah. I think that's a good point.
All right, guys. Is there any other player that had a really good combine? Cam Jackson, I think, had a pretty good showing. Defensive tackles obviously aren't really worried about their 40 times or stuff like that. So, I mean, hey, if he ran a 4.44, a 4.40, then maybe he's into that first round draft pick for whatever reason. But no, that'll be it for today's show, y'all. We're so happy you guys are watching. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next Sunday for some hopefully really good views of the spring practice. As always, y'all, go Gators.